Do we, as we always start with, do we have any public comments this evening as it relates to anything on our agenda? I see that we only have one person from the public joining us, so I'm guessing we do not. Okay, so as always, approval of payroll and payable warrants. Just want to make sure, no, everything's good there. Thumbs up, Angela, all good? Thank you very much. Next on our agenda is our consent agenda. Could I please have an emotion to approve our consent agenda as stated?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Thank you both. Roll call vote. Angela?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Cliff?
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
I now see Keith has joined us. Keith?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. It's an aye for me as well. All right. Do we have any communications this evening?
I received one from regarding the Moses Reed Tyler Scholarship Awards. We had one award recipient who withdrew from school this semester, which we had partly anticipated that might happen given the situations in colleges right now. And so their scholarship is being returned. The funds are being returned, and they may access half of it for next semester if they re-enroll next semester. But so there's some just communication saying some of those monies were coming back.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you very much. Any other communications this evening? All right. We move right into our report section of our agenda. Our first item under reports is an update from Susan and Lori as it relates to SMART goals moving forward.
Yeah, this was just a brief item. Lori and I met, which we'll report on later in the meeting, but our intent here was just to set the frame for the next piece that Jeff is going to be doing around the district improvement plan and the annual goals. And we provided some materials in the superintendent evaluation folder on the shared drive to help people orient to the goal setting process. And so we just want to remind people that this goal setting is the first step in a 5-step continuous improvement cycle for the evaluation process as it's described in the guidance notebooks that we gave all the committee members last year. And we wanted to remind people to bear in mind that these goals are not just Jeff's goals. They are an important piece of our evaluation work with Jeff, and that's a key function of the school committees, was to conduct a fair and open evaluation of the superintendent each year. But these goals are also, we should also be thinking of them sort of as our collective goals, because they should be stating and helping us maintain focus on some key aspects for district improvement. So they're an accountability tool for Jeff's work, as well as our own attention to what matters over the course of the year. They also have potential budgetary ramifications, because in Berlin, the superintendent's contract is performance-based. So depending on how Jeff performs, and our evaluation in June, that has implications for salary increases. So there are budget implications too that school committee needs to be mindful of. And most important, I think, is that the clarity of the goals. We gave you information again about setting SMART goals and what that means, and we just want to remind people that we put a lot of attention at the front end of this process, trying to establish really clear measurable, meaningful goals that we all understand, and we can see what the intended impact of those goals is, and we understand what the superintendent will be doing to advance those goals. Because if we're in concert at the front end of this process, it's more likely we'll be able to achieve consensus at the end of the process. So this is very foundational to the evaluation process. So we really want to encourage you to ask questions, to clarify your understanding of anything in these goals, so that we can all be on the same page as we enter the evaluation process this year. So just a pause to whether anybody has questions about the goal setting process, or your role as school committee members in that process, or any of the materials that we provided for you in the shared drive.
Did you create that crib sheet, Susan? That was
Lori and I did that together. Yeah,
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. You have made it an easy process for us. So you really have eliminated much of the need for questions, in my opinion. But so thank you guys for all of that. Of course, all of that hard work.
All right, that's all.
Thank you very much. Moving through, Jeff, we'll move to your section.
Okay, the first item A, is job titles at the central office. And I did send you correspondence. I sent you some evidence also. I know you've had time to look at it. So I'm just going to read for you what I previously sent to you. So having worked as both the curriculum director and assistant superintendent for teaching and learning, I have long believed that Carol Costello's role in the Berlin-Boylston Regional School District fits into the latter category. Her level of authority and responsibility for teaching and learning in our district far exceeds what anyone would expect from a curriculum director. This is a commonly held belief outside our district as well. Carol participated in and successfully completed the Assistant Superintendent's Leadership Seminar program. The program is intense, and most superintendents spend 1 or 2 years in the program. Carol completed a full 3 years and returned for a 4th year to take part in additional advanced work. Her skill set as an assistant superintendent led the MASS to ask Carol if she would be willing to serve as a mentor for new assistant superintendents, a role she gladly accepted. If the governing board for superintendents, the MASS, recognizes Carol as an assistant superintendent, I think it's time her own district does the same. So tonight, I'll be asking the committee to change Carol's job title from curriculum director / grant coordinator to assistant superintendent for teaching and learning. The title change does not alter the leadership structure in the district, nor does it have any budgetary impact. I included a job description, and I also included 3 letters of reference that were given to her by MASS representatives, all former or current superintendents and assistant superintendents. So I'll be asking for that vote tonight, and I don't know if there are any questions. I know I sent this about a week ago. Okay.
Do we have any questions from anyone on the? It's a nail biter. I can't wait to see if it passes.
I just wanted to congratulate Carol for the letters of commendation, and the reviews that we read were really highly complimentary, and I can see everything that they've referenced in those letters in your work since I've known you, and I congratulate you on that commendation and on this recommendation here.
Yeah, I would just say as well too. Obviously, congratulations, and you know as well. Jeff and I talked about it, and it came to us in a number of different ways. It sounds like as it relates to getting to this point, but you know, I want to commend the administration and Jeff and folks for kind of coming to this point and having this sort of, like, for lack of better terms, I guess, realization and a look at this and taking that step and going through the diligence of talking to the rest of the administrative staff and the folks and going through that diligence, and encourage you to, do that in the future as well. If we have, if there are positions and or opportunities to recognize positions and hard work and experience, then, I think that's something that we need to do potentially more often. So I commend you for, the whole group for taking it to that point, and hope that you, look at this as an opportunity to encourage folks to maybe strive for some of these things in the future too. So good job by everybody. Any other questions before Jeff moves on? Okay, we'll be voting on that in the business items.
All right, second item is district improvement plan update. We're a little late with this, but it's been a weird few months. We're in the people business, and most of it relies on us being here to do the job and to be most effective. And COVID really, I didn't realize it till we start going through the plan, because you're in it, so you don't always see it. But it really changed the 2019-2020 school year, and it's well on its way to changing the 2020-2021 school year. And you're going to see this reflected in the update. Fortunately, we did get a lot done last year, and you'll see a lot of items that we did complete. But we really had to completely retool our industry, and in a small district like ours, we don't have a lot of room to absorb these kind of changes, especially in the areas of technology, for example. And when Bob gets to a section, you'll see we are again facing a difficult budget year. And fortunately, we did get a lot of things done last year. So tonight I've asked the directors to highlight some of the major accomplishments that we've had last year, and then to talk about things we plan this year. Keep in mind that we've made a commitment to the town to level fund our budget this year. Bob will talk a little bit about that. Carol, do you want to start out?
Sure. So the superintendent asked us, as he said, to highlight specific areas that we wanted to recognize this year. And I'm going to take that, I will do it by goals. I think we have 4 goals, 4 sections. And at the end of each goal, I think we'll pause and for any questions within that goal. We decided to do that rather than go step by step through every single action step that we took. So I would tell you on page 7, I wanted to highlight the implementation of computer science into Tohonta Middle School, High School, and the training for teachers and AP computer science courses. This is a huge accomplishment, I would say, for us. We were able to get a grant through partners in programming the acceleration of computing and equity. This is under the United States Department of Education, this grant. We were able to get 2 teachers trained this summer in teaching middle school computer science. The course began in 7th grade this year and will move into 8th grade next year. And that connects to the high school computer science already taking place and aspects of AP as well. So I think this is really important to note that in addition to getting the grant and being able to have we have a district advisory council related to this particular, this pathway that we're taking in computer science. We start those meetings on Thursday, and we're talking about planning, managing equity-based standards, computer science pathways for the school district. So I think it takes into consideration the equity piece that we'll be talking about later this evening. So I think that's the first highlight in this particular section. The next area is on page 11. And I wanted to bring this forward. This is the idea of looking at and working with the new history and social science framework that came out. This was to be able to move into this new framework. This is something that is a long time in the works, and a large portion of this is focused around civics learning. We have a civics project in the 11th grade that students are expected to complete, as well as in the 8th grade. And we're working, I think the teachers in all of these grade levels, 5, were really mindful and reflective about the materials that they'd like to purchase around this, around civics and history and social science. They're taking their time, they're looking through a lot of materials, they're piloting, and we have a civics curriculum in place right now. In 8th grade, we were able to purchase resources for that. We're 9th grade, we're piloting in 6th and 7th grade this year. But I think what was really special in the past 2 years is the K-5 teacher books as kind of launching pads for conversations around citizenship and civics, and looking at history through more around perspective, even at the younger grades. You know, asking essential questions. Why did these things happen? What are the essential themes around it? That work was done in this curriculum. Particular curriculum area, and I think they also tied it in well to the ELA standards around writing and speaking and listening as well. So I just wanted to note that for the academic piece. And then finally on page 14, so I know that this really was something that Jeff felt very passionate about when he came into the district around, and focusing on building our arts, performing arts program. We were able to hire a drama coach last year in the middle school, high school, to use all of the equipment that was up in the auditorium, and that was great. So they could utilize that for performances. The drama coach and some of the students put on small skits during that time, and they were purchased and they performed act play. In fact, Diane, I think they did 2 of them, didn't they, during that time? During last fall, winter time. So I think this was a dream, like I said, of Jeff's, and I think
yes, they were able to do 2 plays, and then they were actually in the middle of practice for another performance, and then we shut down with COVID. This year, just a FYI, they are working towards doing a virtual play. So they are currently working on that as well.
Yeah, this has been so exciting for these students to see this, come to fruition. Their drama coach, Liz Gustafson, has been really moving forward with this, and I'm excited to bring this to the students. And it's just been a great opportunity for them to do this, do this kind of performance work. So those are my 3 highlights. But if there were areas in particular you wanted to address in Goal 1, I'm happy to go to that page and take a look at that with you and explain it better.
I do want to say one thing on the computer science, and one of our overarching goals when we did this plan, we put the plan together, was to make sure students had exposure to computer science in some form or another from K-12. And so there was already a program, an existing program at the elementary schools. And a couple of years ago, we put something in high school. And really the gap we had was in the middle school. So this program we were able to find for grades 7 and 8 has really closed that gap and has given us a elementary through high school exposure to computer science.
A question with the computer science. So,
Questions?
yeah, do we have an AP computer science this year at the high school level?
Yes, we do. Like we had done last year, because last year was the first year, We actually had signed all of the students up. One of the wonderful things about AP Computer Science is regardless of, whether a student is, at the CP level, the honors level, or the AP level at any, in any other discipline, they have the ability to take AP Computer Science and perform well. So what we had decided to do was students would sign up for computer science and then get into the class. They would be given a couple of weeks. Tanis Wood is the instructor. She would explain what the differences would be and the requirements would be between AP computer science and regular computer science. And she then would let them make that determination as to whether or not they would like to enroll in AP Computer Science. So that's where we are right now. And she does have, again this year, I believe there are approximately 7 students who are interested in taking the computer science for the AP credit.
Great, great. And with the performing arts, the elementary, was that just bumped up a year because of COVID, the part about incorporate elementary students into planning a musical production through audition?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Unfortunately.
Again, Angela, we had a 3-year goal. Well, maybe it was the 4th year, to have a production that incorporated not only our high school, but our elementary students and the music department. So we're still hoping for that, and it'll happen. But again, we've had to push it off a little bit.
Are you,
Let's move to goal 2. Sorry, Karen.
I'm sorry. Is
Go
everything
ahead.
we've slotted in here for this current year remaining, or did you take anything out as like, we need to make some adjustments here now?
The one area I would say, and I was just actually looking at that, Susan, if on page 7, we moved that shadowing internship position out. If you see it for FY21, it's red.
Yeah.
Because of budgetary issues, we moved that out to budget for it in FY22 with the hopes of hiring in FY23. The other area was the health teacher, and we pushed that out, I believe, another 2 years. Actually, that's on page 11. It was listed as FY20. Again, we couldn't go forward with that because of the budget situation as it was. We've realistically put that into budgeting it for it in FY22, and then with the intention of hiring FY23. And that being said, because I feel like with Angela, we have gone through a long history of the health frameworks together talking about this. They still have not come out with the health frameworks. I think, Angela, that's been like 10 years now. I don't know. It's been not yet.
Wow.
Sounds right. 10 years sounds about right.
Okay, our second goal is inclusive practices. So Karen's next.
I'm on page 16 if you're following along. The first one that I wanted to highlight was the work that we did with Berlin on the inclusive practices last year and the co-teaching teams. John and I worked with the consultants and the staff in the building, and they did some really nice work on doing co-teaching. And in addition to the ones that we had targeted to do this work, other people got excited and kind of jumped on the bandwagon. So they were doing some co-teaching even in addition to what we had planned. And at the end of the spring, we were really happy to look at some individual scores and see some really strong growth, much higher growth than we expected, quite honestly. So it was a real positive year for that. Part of our plan for this year was to work on the trainer model and still have some staff training for the groups that have been working on this. Obviously, we're limiting the number of people coming into the building right now. So that's kind of on hold. And I think John and I will continue to work and support the staff internally as much as we're able to. There may be some virtual trainings that we can take advantage of as well, but that's a little bit slowed down because of the situation right now. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the UDL practices. We had hoped that we would be able to, 2 years ago actually, bring some trainers in to work with us. And then Carol and I found that they were pretty cost prohibitive. It's a very pricey program. So we looked at other ways to do this. And we've been talking with our collaborative about offering some things which they were talking about before we went out. And then in addition to that, the principals, Carol, Sally, and I all went to a training from the state on inclusive practices and universal design, and really was a very intense, very good program that we all worked on together. And we kind of got some common terminology that we use, some common ideas of where we want to go with this. Worked on some possible training that we can do with our staff ourselves. So made some progress on that goal, but in a different direction than what we originally thought we were going to do with that. The part of that also was there was also the reading training that we did. I just wanted to highlight, we had 4 teachers who went through Orton Gillingham training, which is, again, a very intense training followed by a year-long internship that they're supervised in. They did a wonderful job. It really built the skills that we have available in the elementary schools. And some of them, unfortunately, we have to finish up the internship this year, but they're all working on it and doing a great job. The next page, we had some budgetary things. We had put in the budget, we're looking at bringing the pre-K back to Boylston, and we were looking at increasing the coordinator. Those were in the original budget, but we had to make some choices. And so those were some of the hard choices we made last year. So we'll keep looking at that through every budget process. We also wanted to find some increased support for our BCBA, because one of the things that we know is with all of the new students moving in, we've really tapped out our BCBA. Very expensive to find BCBA support part-time and difficult to do. So we looked at it in a little bit of a different way. We did hire some outside support for some small trainings and things like that that we could do. We also hired some clerical support that we could do with existing staff, hiring them after school to do some of the data collection work for her and take that off the BCBA's plate. And that was both cost effective and really gave her more time to concentrate on working with staff and students. So that was helpful last year in plugging that hole. We also have worked a little bit on an equity plan. Carol and I worked on that last year with the principals, talking about equity, talking about where we want to go in the district. Diane and Sally and Carol and I also joined the Diversity Network, which is run by DESE, and went through a series of meetings throughout the state with a cadre of people, learning more about where we want to go and what might help us get there. And one of our real goals for this year was to look at a little more diversity in our hiring. And I think we've done a little bit of that this year, but we still have a ways to go. I think we're all aware of it. We're talking about it. We're looking for options and trying to open up our horizons a little bit and getting a more diverse teaching staff. So we've seen some results from that work as well. So some of these other things we've completed. The only thing I would say at the end, the wellness committee was not a great success last year. We had our meetings scheduled. A lot of them were in the spring. And so we had our first meeting and we didn't get very far. So we're up and running already. We've got it advertised and we've got people applying, and we're getting a really early start on that this year. So hopefully we'll be able to do more with that. think that's it for me. Any questions on any of those? Okay. I think, Paul, you're next.
Thanks. Good evening, everybody. So as Jeff mentioned, the areas of technology in the district improvement plan were really had a major impact by COVID. And it was both positive, negative, and in some cases neutral. Being the tech guy, I'm gonna go with the automotive analogy throughout. So in some cases, we really had to step on the gas in terms of technology, in particular, the digital learning initiative, which is basically how we're getting technology in the hands of our students. We went from planning grades 3 through 10, really for FY21, to really having to step on the gas and create what basically amounts to a one-to-one plan so that we could have devices in the hands of everyone, K through 12. In other areas, COVID caused us to bear right or bear left, rather than plowing straight forward. A couple of those areas that I want to mention, one was the family and community engagement piece around Power School. We couldn't take the time in March to be doing anything with Power School. We really had to focus our attention on remote learning and getting some information out for both our staff and our parents to be able to really handle what we originally thought was going to be, 2.5 weeks, which then became 2 months, which then became the remainder of the year. So we really had to, again, bear off to the right when it came to dealing with anything as far as community engagement. Another piece in that same area, I would say we kind of changed direction, is Karen mentioned universal design. We had hoped to provide some support utilizing technology tools to help support UDL. But really, again, our focus had to be about remote learning and training our staff and creating, again, some videos and some help docs for, parents to help their students, help their kids at home deal with remote learning. So as a quick aside, I want to thank Betsy Peterson, even though she's no longer with us and has moved on to other pastures, but also Wesley Swenson for his job in relation to creating some of those documents and some of that training. Again, a third example was our plan around digital literacy. Again, Carol mentioned, we've created a digital literacy council. Again, she said our first meeting is this Thursday. As things go on, I'm sure Carol and I will be updating the committee as to where we're going and the progress we've made in that Digital Literacy Advisory Council. And then again, finally, in keeping with my automotive theme here, there were times where COVID had us stomping on the brakes. There are a lot of things in the the district improvement plan that called for us to pilot devices or pilot interactive boards. And in this COVID world, those things just can't happen. We, as part of that grant in the digital literacy piece that we did in the spring, we received some virtual reality gear. And again, those are headsets and meant to be shared devices. And with COVID-19, we can't be piloting shared devices with our kids. So again, in some of those places, we've really had to hit the brakes, and you'll see that in the plan, we've moved things out a year, especially when it revolves around any kind of piloting or, again, devices that we might have to put in the hands of either teachers or our students, we kind of have to put some of those things on pause. So yeah, that's kind of technology in a nutshell. We had, again, if you follow the plan, we were able to complete many things. In some cases, again, like in the digital learning, we were beyond where we thought we would be at this point. In other places, we've had to change directions. Again, if you look in the digital literacy, there's a section there in purple. I should pull up a page number for you. But it's on page 22, where, again, we've kind of gone a slightly different direction and added to the plan. And then in many instances, again, with the virtual reality, the augmented reality, we've had to, shift those things out a year because we can't really make valid decisions based off of how kids interact or how teachers would work with that within their curriculum if you don't have a chance to use the technology. So yeah, that's technology.
Bob?
Yep. Am I up? Okay. So I'm gonna, what's that?
So how are we gonna pay for all of this?
Who's we? So
That's
I'm going to summarize, highlight some of the items that I have in my section, and then I'll provide a brief financial framing of the plan, give it some context on the impact. So the first part for my items in the management and operations area, there was we did complete the transportation revolving fund. I think that's something we actually had on for FY21, but because of COVID-19 and the concern about potential decreases to Chapter 70 money, the transportation revolving fund was created. School committee approved it in FY20. That gives us some flexibility to respond to potential changes in Chapter 70 money. So that's an important accomplishment that gives us, puts us on more solid footing. Similarly, kind of thinking about solid footing financially, we had a goal beginning in FY21 to develop a more sustainable operating budget, particularly looking at school choice funds. We have been overspending expense, what we're spending out of school choice funds versus what comes in for school choice tuition revenue. We made some significant inroads this year at Tohonta in Berlin. Berlin is close to level now, school choice revenues and expenses. Tohonta, we were able to cut the gap from 225 down to 150. So significant progress there as well. In Boylston, we actually had to use a little bit more, and that was a case of us really having to balance short-term and long-term needs. Responding to the town's financial concerns at the same time, investing in some important resources in the district. And I won't kind of go back through that, but I mean, we did add a couple paraprofessionals, we added a teacher, and those were important supports to current students. So there's going to be times where we have to push things off in terms of developing more sustainable budget. But so that I think the Boylston area is still going to be a focus going forward, as well as Tohonta to a lesser extent. So that's something that's going to be a continual focus through the budget process. We've also, we had an item on here for looking at a independent staffing assessment from either MASPA or MASBO to do some benchmarking. We've committed to do benchmarking to make sure we're paying people competitively and that we're competitively staffed as well, and we're providing sufficient resources to people. The competitive pay analysis was done in prior years, and adjustments were made. The staffing piece, instead of hiring a consultant, we used, and at ACE and Karen were involved in this too. We looked at data available from DESI. They have analytical tools. It's called Radar, and we were able to clearly identify a need for paraprofessionals and use that to support our budget ask during FY20. So those are, I'd say, some significant accomplishments. One item that was deferred was hiring an assistant business manager. That's something that was put on there as a kind of investigation, and based on data, it was kind of borderline whether that was needed. So as much as I'd love the support, we felt like there was more important items in the district improvement plan. So those are the items I'd wanted to highlight. And then kind of putting this into context financially, there was a lot on here. There's, I think I'm on page 25 here, 26 pages. There's a lot of items that are on here and that are getting accomplished. And when we looked at refreshing the plan, Jeff and I talked about the fact that when we talked to the towns last year, we really pushed for support of a budget during a difficult time. And we committed to deliver a level service budget this year. So what you see in the district improvement plan for FY22, you will see some increased costs, but I would, from my perspective and Jeff's, we look at the dollars that are there, and those are supporting existing initiatives. For example, additional BCBA support. That's just needed to support our existing students. That's not something that's above level service. Similarly, cutting into the excess amount of school choice we use is not above level service. That's helping us develop a sustainable budget. So, so when we talk about the district improvement plan, these are not necessarily things that are all above level service. Some of these are needed to just continue to run effectively as we're currently structured. There are some dollars, if you looked at the bottom of, I don't think it's numbered, but after page 27, there's a summary, and at the bottom, there's incremental percentages that are shown for each school, what the budget impact is for each fiscal year. And that would be in addition to whatever our level service increase is for, contractual issues, teacher pay, things like that. So this kind of gives us a map of where we expect we might be. And as we go through the budget process, we'll look at this and we'll refine it. But so I'd say it's not, too eye-opening. It's not zero in additional either. So we think we'll be a little bit above 2.5% that we might see in a level service budget. And we'll have to be working with the towns to kind of communicate, what we're prioritizing and why, and hear their perspective as well. That's all I had, unless there's any questions.
Thanks, Bob. I just wanted to say a couple of things. First of all, Bob, you did a great job on the financial part. I've said this before. I've seen a lot of district improvement plans, and I haven't seen any of them that have a way to pay for the whole thing. And so we actually developed this in July 2018, and so far, well, up until now, we've pretty much been spot on every year with what this plan is going to cost the towns. Even last year, we were pretty close to the actual number percentage was pretty close to what was in this plan, and we should be pretty accurate this year too. But one of the things you should have, I hope you get out of this is that much of what's in the district improvement plan relies on us being in school. Again, like I mentioned earlier, we're a people business. Susan asked a question. She emailed me a question that was a good question. So how does this change anything? Are our goals still the same? Are we still kind of rowing in the same direction? And the answer is yes. We were actually ahead of the curve before COVID-19. So we're still on track. If we have to go remote again for any length of time this year, that may not be the case next year. If we're able to come back full in at some point this year, we'll definitely be back on track. We haven't saved any money during this pandemic. So I know we get things from parents to say, well, you know, you don't have as much busing, but we actually haven't saved. So we're still, the goals remain the same. Again, if we have to go remote, these things we have like music, we're ahead of the curve there. Music, drama, those are really areas where you have to interact with people, especially things like chorus. And those are things that even in a hybrid model, we're really not able to do. So we're stretched right there. But if we can come back at some point this year, I think we're in good shape now, and I think we will finish up okay. So that's the district improvement plan. I don't know if you have any specific questions or any overarching questions about the plan. All right. All right, I'm going to go on to my third item, which is the superintendent goals. So my first goal is a equity goal, and it's a goal that I've been wanting to do for a while. And actually, as Karen mentioned, there some of the other members of the leadership team have already sort of begun this work. It's a good time to do it this year. If there's one thing COVID has brought about, it's kind of highlighted some of these inequities in our district, especially in the economic piece. So this is a good year. This is a good year to have an equity goal. And it's a shared goal. Each member of the leadership team will share in this goal and will do their piece of it. But it's also at least a 2-year goal. And as I continue to read through this, I'm like, this is really a 3-year goal, but I'm going to leave it at 2 years for now. But I really think this is an ongoing process. So this year, what we're hoping to do as an administrative leadership team is to work with a consultant, bring the consultant in to work just with the leadership team and to just to kind of work with us so we can define what equity means to us. If you went around to each member of the leadership team right now, I think we'd all have different definitions. Not only would we have different definitions, but we'd have different definitions as it applies to our district. And I think in order for us to do work that's meaningful with the teachers and with us, for it to have an impact on the student, we have to be on the same page first. I know in the past, some things were done. I've talked to Karen about this and Carol. Some things were done in the district. They really didn't take hold. But I'm hoping that this really will. And I hope that it will have meaning for the district, for our students. So that's the first goal. I know you've had them for a while. I could actually had Susan do my goals for me. She probably knows them better than me at this point. So that's that goal. Let's see. My second goal is a parent and community engagement goal. And this is another one I've been thinking about since I arrived here, and it's a communication goal. And so what I want to do is put together an advisory board that's made up of parents, teachers, of a school committee member on there. I know one of the members talked about alternating members. I don't know, it's up to you how you want to do that. possibly a student, and really to advise me on just issues that are going on in the district. You know, I get, every once in a while, I'll get like a set of emails from parents. Hey, when are we going to all go full in? Well, what about this issue? What about that issue? And so I realize that there's a lot of talk about issues out there before they get to me. So hopefully this will help with the engagement in the community. There was one thing I did want to talk about. I just didn't know where to put it. One of the things we talked about, I talked about with the committee, I talked about with the Policy Subcommittee group, is I would really like to work on it this year. I know that the school committee has a community outreach goal, and that's, we talked earlier about, we've talked a couple times actually about a field trip scholarship fund that would be funded by the community. It would require some outreach. I have a framework for it in my head, but it really kind of needs a group effort. And the idea would be we go on some costly field trips, and I think they're worthwhile. I think they're good endeavors. I think it's one of the things that separates us from a lot of other school districts that we offer so much of this, but they're expensive. And in the past, what's happened is, you know, if a student can't afford it, they sort of go to Diane, or the parent goes to Diane. And so I was thinking of something that would be more on a scholarship basis, where if a trip, for example, was $2,000, that a student who couldn't afford that could actually apply for a scholarship, and, you know, go through the paperwork, fill it out, and would have, the schools wouldn't review it. I was thinking a school committee member could do it. They're a little further from the issue, look at it more objectively, and determine, you know, what that student's need is based on responses. And I think there's a lot of work to be done behind that. I didn't know where to put it in these goals. I didn't know if it fit. It does fit in equity. It fits in communication. So that is something I'd like to work on with the school committee, if that's part of their goals too. So I think we could talk about that later, but I did want to mention it. Were there any thoughts about that from the school committee before I move on? I know I've mentioned it a couple times. Okay.
Well, I just think you just have to be clear about whether you want to have that be part of these goals formally and part of your evaluation, or whether it's something you want to work with the school committee on separate from that process.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. I mean, I think it's important. I know we kind of approached it as a policy issue before, or we started to, but it didn't really seem to fit in anywhere in a policy piece. And I don't know where we left that off, but I guess we can revisit it.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that? We start working on that? Yeah. So, okay, well, I just throw it out there. It's something I'm thinking about. I'd like to do it. And it probably would require some assistance from the school committee. So if it's one of your goals, it doesn't necessarily, if it's one of your goals as a school committee, it doesn't necessarily have to be an official goal for me. I mean, I can still work on it with the committee. And I didn't even think about that piece of whether I wanted it as an official goal or not, but.
It also might be an outgrowth of the community, the advisory board that you're setting up, so that it might evolve organically out of that.
Yeah.
Replace, it could just show up within the goal structure here.
It can also be part of each of our goals, right? Meaning from the sense of where it might align with the school committee is under the community engagement aspect, as we might be a tool or resource to help you fulfill this goal. It might be an equity goal for you because really the long-term goal for you is driven by the equity piece, which is providing resources to deliver equity when it comes to the field trips. But ultimately, you might leverage us as a tool and our goal for community outreach to help deliver some of that, right? Maybe it's community participation, business participation, that type of stuff that the school committee might do community facing, but it helps you deliver on an equity goal, right? So, so it could hit both our goals, right?
Okay. All right.
Right, because Jeff, you're envisioning the scholarship fund would come from community resources, right? Not
You know, private businesses, stuff like that. And I, you know, I always thought that, and I certainly do part of it too. I want to get out there and, you know, and interact with the community as much as I can. But I realized that there are a lot of people in the community that already have those kind of contacts and can help steer me in that direction. So
I think that in my experience over the years, a fund like that is more typically community-based than school-based. That doesn't mean it doesn't involve school committee members. Maybe school committee members are the ones who initiated the idea and caused the seed to grow. But in my experience, it's typically something that is more community-based. School committee members are a part of it. And of course, the superintendent is part of it, but it's really, the work is done by community members, in my experience. So I think the school committee can be the initiator, and whatever that looks like. And then of course we would be doing that in conjunction with you, Jeff, but the thrust and the burden for it would be on the community.
And I think, Cliff, maybe the financial oversight also takes place in the, you know, usually there's like a fundraising arm for the school district through the PTOs or some other kind of structure, and they oversee that as a separate financial undertaking, so it doesn't get entangled directly with the school's budget. Is that correct?
Can I just comment?
Yeah.
It's permissible to set up a donation fund. It really depends on, do you have community members who are going to want to manage this, and you're going to want to have community members making decisions on how to use the money? So I think there's different approaches you could do, but it is permissible to have a donation account. But either way, you're going to want to have clear rules on how the fund is accessed and who decides how to access it.
Yeah, I think, Bob, you've just pointed out, whatever this looks like ultimately, Jeff, it's going to have to be a collaborative effort, because it's intertwined with the school, but it's not initiated by the school. Yeah, I mean, Bob would be, anyone in the finance would be dealing with that. Yeah, it's a complicated process, I think, but it's a collaborative process.
yeah, it seems like it would be, you know, as you start thinking about it more and more, it seems like it would be simple, but as you think about it, you realize this has a lot of different arms, you know, a lot of different things you have to think about. But I think it's worth it. I mean, you know, we do a lot of these things, and again, I think it's one of the things that we offer our students that, especially because of our size, that a lot of districts, they don't do anymore. And so again, I think it's one of the things that separates us from a lot of districts, and we just need to make sure that everybody can take part. So, okay, goal 3, professional practice goal. I will be working with my mentor again this year, and we'll put together a list of dates and discussion topics. And, you know, I met with her for a few hours a couple weeks ago, and I said, you know, because last year she gave me some things up front, some basic topics. And she kind of hesitated to do it. Basically said, you know, where do you want me to start? I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow with COVID-19. And I think a lot of these things we're just going to have to just work on as they come along. Not all of them. There's a lot of things that, you know, are relevant to a regional school. And because she's the executive director, assistant executive director of the Massachusetts Association of Regional Schools, she does sometimes have a lead on information, which is good for us. But so I'll continue that work with my mentor this year. And I know we talked about doing it for 3 years, but it's worked out. It's worked out really great for me. Not only our official meetings, but you know, I was on the phone with her twice just today about things that have come up. So it's good to have someone like that. So those are my goals. What's that?
Jeff, last year there was it seemed like help me remember, didn't the school committee approve a contract between you and the mentor?
Oh, yes.
And are we doing that again this year?
Yeah, I forgot all about that. We did. It was, Christy, did we send something? She's there someplace. Did we send a contract to Christine?
No, not for this fiscal year. We sent it last year.
Okay, yeah, we'll get something to her.
So I just want to point out to the school committee that remember that the evaluation process in relation to these goals, it's two-pronged. So one part of the evaluation process is to evaluate Jeff's performance in relation to these goals. And the other part is to evaluate his performance in relation to some selected focal indicators within each of the 4 leadership standards for superintendents. And so Jeff has figured out what those focal standards would be. At the bottom of each of these goals, he lists those. And they now cross all 4 of the leadership standards, which they needed to do. So these standards addressed at the bottom will be included in the evaluation form, and we'll be looking at performance in relation to those standards. That'll be sort of half of the evaluation process, and then that gets rolled up with the goal performance evaluation into one summative rating in the end.
And that's all I have, Jim. And actually, let's see. Yeah, the other directors except Bob, that their piece was to go through the district improvement plan with me.
Okay,
I think we're down to 6.
right on. Okay, I will pass it to Mr. Conry then.
Okay, so I have attached, you have my report. The first item that I had was the just a first quarter budget updates. It's actually through the first week of October. And I just wanted to point out a few things. The first thing is that aside from COVID-19 related incremental expenses, we'd be roughly in the same shape as last fiscal year. You know, each school kind of in a similar position. And that's so far as of now. So that's one thing I wanted to share, and it's early in the year, so I don't think that necessarily means a ton, but it is directional. The second thing I wanted to highlight is that if you happen to look at the 800-line detail reports, one, you have a problem, but two, that you're going to see some negative balances for COVID-19 related accounts. And what we did is we created additional accounts to track expenses that we would not have incurred if it were not for COVID-19. We've charged those expenses there in the hope, which we think we're a little bit more optimistic about now, that we'll be able to charge those to either a FEMA grant or the DESI school reopening grant. We do have some limitations on the DESI school reopening grant in terms of what we can spend. So we're waiting for approval on FEMA. So typically I would clear out any negative balances and we'd find funds to transfer from another budget line. However, in this case, we expect that these expenses will be transferred to either a FEMA grant or the DESI school reopening grant. So I just wanted to explain it in case you saw some negative or red numbers on what you looked at. The second item I wanted to highlight is the Boylston Elementary School typically receives some offsets to its operating budget from the after-school program. It has a robust attendance, I think 70 to 80 students about. With the program running, without the program running, there's about $30,000 in costs that will need to be absorbed by the general fund that normally would not be. And we've already worked out about 2/3 of that, and the remaining 1/3 we're still looking into. But that has had a, Jeff talked about we're not necessarily saving money from COVID-19. This is an example of the opposite direction. And then Berlin Memorial, its budget might look relatively good, but I did want to provide a heads up that there'll be some significant costs anticipated coming on later this fall for 2 new special education students. The budget impact's not known at this time, but the balance that's available will be impacted by that. So if there's no questions on the budget reports, I will move forward. I'm going to say the budget timeline for last. The third item was the OPEB trust contribution. It's a business item. This is something we contribute to. The OPEB trust. OPEB stands for Other Post-Employment Benefits. It's really healthcare expenses. And the idea is that you contribute to a trust, and eventually it's large enough where the income from the trust pays for post-retirement healthcare expenses, instead of having to pay for these out of the operating budget. Current students right now aren't receiving any benefit from the expenses in the budget for post-retirement healthcare. So that's kind of the concept behind getting this fully funded. So all I'm requesting for this is that you approve our contribution, that we actually make our budgeted contribution now in October, or our next payables warrant for what you previously approved that we budgeted, and we'll make that contribution to the trust now instead of waiting to the end of the year. And the last item is the budget timeline. It's very similar to prior years. Wasn't necessarily going to go through it in detail. I think the dates I looked at for the school committee meetings, but I did want to highlight that Jeff and I received a contact from the town of Berlin, the town administrator, and the finance committee chair. So they wanted to have a discussion on the timeline. So we don't know where that's going to go, but that's just something that's on our radar, and Jeff and I will meet with them when they set a time. So I don't know if anyone had any questions, but if not, that was my report.
This is Angela. I was just a little confused about the COVID expenses. Are those the expenses I see in parentheses on the line item budget, or?
Negative, yeah. In parentheses, the items in parentheses will be negative balances.
Okay, thanks.
And they usually, they'll say COVID-19 in the account description. There might be one or two accounts that have very small negative variances aside from that, but those reports used to be a little bit more manageable when we had 3 separate districts, but now they're like, you have to comb through about 20 pages to read it. But I mean, if the school committee, I included it because it's historically been included. If it's not helpful, I can just stop providing that detail.
No, I like the detail. Thank you.
I think that's it then.
Any other questions for Rob? Okay, looks like we're moving to our enrollment discussion for the evening. Did you have, Jeff, did you have anyone particular you wanted to start?
Diane?
Sure. Thank you. All of you have the preliminary enrollment numbers, the October 1st enrollment numbers. So currently at Tohonta, grades 6 through 12, we have enrolled 564 students. In comparison to last year, that's down 8 students. And we're looking at our largest grade is our current 7th grade with 92 students. We had, I want to thank Bonnie Moran for this breakdown of the inclusion of remote students, those students who chose to begin the year full remote with Edgenuity. Berlin, we have in grades 6 through 12, we have 9 students participating, and in Boylston, we have 15 students participating, and that's a little over 2.3% of our overall student population, which is, in comparison, I think I've said this before, in comparison to surrounding districts, that is extremely low. Which I'm happy to report because we love to see the kids in the hallway, even if it's only 2 days per week per cohort. Included in that 564 students, we have 7 students that are in out of district placement, which is decreased by 4 from last year. Does anyone have any questions regarding the enrollment numbers? We're at 62 school choice this year in comparison to 74 last year. I believe we can really attribute that to COVID. I think what happens is, we had quite a few applicants and then COVID hit, and, having to transfer a student who you're really unsure of what the school year is going to look like. It's difficult enough to come into a new school, never mind, a new school with COVID and not knowing the school district itself. So I attribute that variance in that number to COVID. Anyone have any questions regarding enrollment for Tohonta? Thank you.
John?
Good evening, everybody. You have the report from my school as well. 194 students enrolled this year, which is up a little bit for us. It's up about 6 kids. And that's attributable, I think, to some of the new housing that's being built in the area. Of that 194, 20 are remote, fully remote at this point, which is, about 10%, which is about what we expected. We've also got just because we were talking about this earlier in the year. We were concerned about kids leaving for private schools. We only lost 2, and then we have 5 students who are being homeschooled, which again is not for Berlin an unusual number. We've been pleased with the way things have worked out in terms of, the cohort groupings. The teachers worked very hard to make effective small groups, and we move forward.
All right. No questions for John. My current enrollment is at 278. That is up a titch from what it has been in the past. It is down since I last reported last month. We did have 1 student move from remote to homeschool. But what's not in this report is since October 1st, we did have 2 new students join our school. So that would bring us up to 280 students currently enrolled. Let me see, we do have 41 students in the remote program, which is about 15%. Again, it's in line with what our early surveys suggested we would see. And we do have, so that's 41 remote, 237 split between the 2 cohorts. So I don't know if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you. You're muted, Jim.
That I am, Jeff. That I am. That moves us to our update from Policy Subcommittee.
Let's see, Policy Subcommittee, we didn't meet this last month because we had done so much work the prior months. We think it covered a couple here. We do have some votes tonight, though, on several policies that were presented at the last meeting. So if anybody has any questions about those, this would be the time to ask. Okay, so I guess we're clear on those. We're ready for vote. So we will probably schedule a meeting in November, but no new news from October.
Great. Thank you very much. Item number 9 is our school committee goals. First up is goal 1, Angela and Lori.
Hi. So Lori and I worked on a kind of onboarding new committee member goal, which I think you received via email and is in the packet. It's a draft, so we really just wanted your feedback on that goal. The timeline is set up so that if someone resigns January 1 and we have to appoint someone new, if no one resigns, then we'd push back the timeline and pilot the onboarding process, I think in May, with new members at that time. Mostly we just, oh, go ahead. Any questions, comments, suggestions that you have right now?
So I just want to make sure I understand this, Angela, for a second. So the references to the timetables by April, new members will be solicited for feedback. That's based on basically new members coming on anytime between January and April, right?
Right.
Okay. And when I read this, it sounded like basically you've detailed the tasks that new members should be doing during the first month or so, and that there would be an assigned mentor, and that person would work to support the new member for about 3 months.
Yeah, at least. So some of the handbooks and some of the onboarding school committee members are assigned a mentor when they're new. It's nothing we've never officially done that I'm aware of for our school committee. I know I certainly had one myself, but it was more just, not unofficial. It's just someone I kind of pegged as friendly and helpful, and I would always ask him questions before and after meetings. But we felt like it might be good because the main goal is to make a school committee member feel comfortable and competent in a shorter amount of time. I know for me, it felt like a year before I really even knew what I was doing. And so.
And how would that mentor be identified then here? Is that something that would be appointed through the chair, or how do you envision that piece?
Well, I think that's up to us to decide, but I do sort of envision it appointed by the chair for sure, with maybe ideally a more seasoned member who's willing to do it. And we just created these are all totally draft, so totally open to your feedback, but we felt like, okay, what should a mentor do? And I listed those there.
And is there any kind of understanding of confidentiality at all between the mentor and the new member, or have you thought about that? Sort of just, is it important to have any confidential conversations between those two? Or I don't know, I'm just off the top of my head wondering about, often in schools when you have mentors, they're confidential sort of safe relationships, where somebody can ask stupid questions and nobody's going to go tell on them, for example. So I'm just wondering whether you thought of that kind of norms of conduct or anything that might be important. I don't know if it is or not. I'm raising that as a question.
Yeah, I guess I just kind of felt that was implied. Lori, do you have any comments on that?
Sorry, I had to find my mouse. That's an interesting question that you've raised, Susan. I know I've asked you quite a few questions, and I've never thought about that. I guess I really don't know the answer to it. I've personally felt safe asking questions. There's nothing that I haven't asked. But that's not to say that I wouldn't have a question that I would be too embarrassed to ask, or that I would be afraid that you would be like, oh, she had that question.
Okay. Thank you for doing this.
It's been helpful for me too, just because I went through everything again that I needed to do, that to be honest, that first night when I was sworn in, I was so overwhelmed and so nervous that a lot of these things fell through the cracks until I started going through them, going, oh, I gotta check that off, check that off. So they're done now, but it was more the nervousness of retaining the information and having it. I like the way that Angela set it up with basically checking it off and making sure that you have someone that you could go to if you had questions, like, where do I go again? I forget what they said to me. So I really loved the idea of the mentor.
One of the things you and I talked about, Lori, when we met on the evaluation subcommittee, was making sure there was attention to supporting new members with understanding the evaluation process, because it's pretty complicated for somebody who's brand new to it. And I'm wondering if one of those check boxes might be that the new member and the mentor or any other designated member of the committee meets to do kind of a walkthrough of the evaluation process and using the this guidebook as a tool for understanding.
I think that's an excellent idea, actually. And I think since we have those binders that are going to be passed on to new members when they join, it's almost like I feel like when you pass on the binder would be a good time to have a one-on-one training or a small group training, either with someone who's on the superintendent evaluation subcommittee or possibly the mentor. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, probably the evaluation subcommittee would be appropriate. So in case there are any new changes to the document and so on, that'd be great if that could be added. I think that would be helpful for people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, Lori and I just essentially kind of talked about, what was helpful for her or lacking, and what was helpful for me or lacking when we were both new. And we tried to incorporate that. Like, I really feel strongly about having a one-on-one meeting with the superintendent at central office.
Mm-hmm.
I also think it would be helpful to have a one-on-one with the chair.
Mm-hmm.
Just as it helps them feel comfortable having both of those people in addition to the mentor to kind of meet and talk with one-on-one initially.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments, feedback?
No, I mean, the only other thing that comes to mind for me is, you and I talked about this at one point, Angela, whether it would be useful for new members to share their resumes and or letters of interest of serving on the school committee with the rest of the school committee and the superintendent, because I mean, part of the job of any team is to understand what kinds of strengths are sitting on that team.
Mm-hmm.
And one way to get a quick sense of that is by looking at something like a resume and a letter of interest to serving on the committee. And then people also can talk about some of those things when they're meeting one-to-one, and explore those a little more, or explore how those skills and experiences might be utilized on the committee. So I would just raise whether it might be useful to have another bullet that says the new member, shares their resume and letter of interest with the committee and superintendent.
Well, that's part of our process as we. Well, I guess I shouldn't say that. Not as part of a typical electoral process, it is not, but as it relates to an appointment process, that is our typical process. When we appointed Lori, candidates were to provide a letter of interest along with a resume that would be draft for review. So during an appointment process, that's a typical process, which is valuable to your point, right? When you're allowed, when you're in a position of an appointment to make that decision at the end of the day, as it relates to the electoral process, all right, that's outside of our hands as it relates to the election. But I get your point that information is valuable once that person is elected. So maybe it's maybe it's not necessarily a letter of interest and or resume, but it's maybe a formal introduction, right, of strengths and purpose and interest and all that stuff. So maybe it's a formal introduction, which is like a resume, right?
Yeah, that could work also. I was thinking back to before when it was the selectmen who appointed, like I was appointed by the selectmen, for example. So I didn't go through that experience. Now that we're regionalized, things come through the chair
Correct. Yeah.
or the election. But still the election, I think what you're proposing is fine. A formal introduction, no matter which way you kind of enter on. That'd be good.
I personally found the bios on the school committee page, those that were there, really helpful.
Oh, yeah.
That's where I went.
List.
Way to throw some of us under the bus, Lori. Thanks.
Sorry about that, Jim.
Well, that
Well,
should-
I think too, that's a good point, because in a new school committee member kind of has the idea, if they do this, kind of what they can bring to the table, because I think every new school committee member knows what their strengths are and why they're joining and how they think they can help the team.
Yeah.
So
So getting that bio information might be something to add to the lists, another task they need to do in that first month. Photo and bio, I'm sure Christy would appreciate that.
Hey, I'm coming on 4 years and I haven't done mine yet, so.
Shame on you.
We'll have to send someone to interview you instead and do
Oh,
it.
no.
Let's write it.
And also you'll notice when I say about the feedback at the end, I'm asking for feedback not only for the whole committee, the new people, but also the superintendent and Christy as well, because I think switching more to a mentor help, making sure you have everything is different than it was way back when I started, which was totally the administrative assistant who was making sure I did everything. So I guess I just kind of wanted to touch base with all parties about their involvement in the process and any feedback, things they wanted changed or not changed.
Okay. All right. So goal number 2, I would love to say that we're going to have as wonderful an update as you folks had. I don't particularly have an update. I will take some responsibility on that, as I know that I had sort of volunteered to take the lead on the redrafting of the sort of baseline goal that Susan had drawn up. And I started to take a whack at it. And to be completely honest, I did not have the time to allocate to it over the last few weeks. So I don't particularly have an update of that. That'll be a top priority for me once I get through corporate stuff this week. Next week, I have a lot of time that frees up. So I'll be able to spend some time in that, but I don't know if Cliff or Keith have any updates in particular that they wanted to mention. Okay. All right. So the guys lose that battle 1-0, and we'll make a comeback next month.
Can I ask a quick question, Jim?
Sure. Yeah.
I'm just wondering if any of the school committee members were able to go to that Division 4 joint workshop on social media. School committee members, did anybody?
I signed up and then wasn't able to go at the last minute.
Okay. I just thought it looked good, but I didn't.
Yeah, it did look good. And I do, while you're on that, I just want to mention that in the last, MASC bulletin, they listed topics coming up, one a month in the coming months that also look good. They're like 90-minute sessions. They look worthwhile. You can only sign up for them 30 days in advance. And when I went to look at November's, there was no sign up for that yet. So it seems like they're running behind on it, but I would suggest people keep an eye on those, because it's good to have more than one member of the committee attend those. I just feel like it's not enough knowledge-based growth here on the committee if we just have one person who's picking up some new ideas. We need more momentum behind some of those topics, and they have good topics coming up.
I certainly agree that it's important that more than one committee member attend that sort of thing. Because even like with the annual conference, I think one year I went alone, if I recall correctly, and the superintendent didn't even show up. So not Jeff, someone else. And it's great to sit there and speak with other people and find out what other school committees are doing, but the people who you need to talk to are here,
right?
Not there. So I think that's a really important suggestion, Susan.
Well, if there's a way, even if people are planning to post, attend these things, to just send a group email saying, I'm attending, let me know if you are too. And that way we can sort of have a sense of who to talk to if we do attend one of those things. So, and how to bring it back into the school committee. Okay.
Okay, next item on our, am I muted again? Nope. Next item on our agenda is our superintendent evaluation subcommittee report.
Okay, so this is just a quick note that Lori and I met. You saw the minutes in the consent agenda. And so just want to draw your attention to a couple of things. We reviewed the evaluation timeline that we submitted at last meeting, and just fine-tuned some of the notes and dates on there. We made no substantive changes, but the final version of that document is in this month's shared folder. So if you need to mark down, when certain things are happening, like the summative evaluation stages at the end, they're on this month's document. We want to make one recommendation to the committee that I'd like, if we could put on for a vote next month. We were looking at the summative evaluation form, and we noticed, and we didn't particularly notice this before, but because we had compiled all the data for the report this last spring, we were noticing that on the form itself, when people evaluate each of the 4 leadership standards, there's a box for people to write their comments about why they were evaluating the performance in a certain way. But when you went to the goals, there were no comment boxes associated with the goals. And we felt that, the goals are a key driver of the evaluation, and there should be some comments there. So we would like to propose that we add to the form comment boxes, and for the school committee to be inserting the same kinds of comments and evidence to the goals evaluation as they do to the standards evaluation. So we want to ask if there are any thoughts on that right now. Does that seem to make sense to you? Do you understand what we're suggesting? I'm
That
seeing.
makes sense to me. I think that sounds fine.
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
Okay. All right. So I think because it's a modest change to the evaluation form itself, we should actually vote it. So I suggest that we do that at the next meeting, and I'll send to Christy an updated form. And I can put in that form now too, I think, Jeff's goals and standards. I could put the whole final form in there. So we'll take a look at that in November. And then the last thing is that we felt that the evaluation binders that we referenced last year need to be updated. I don't know if you wrote in yours, but I wrote in mine. And so what we want to do is collect the physical binders and update them and get them back to you in December sometime. And that in the case when there are changes in school committee membership, that we will take that person's binder and pass it on to the new person. So we are not constantly making new binders. So we have a set of 6, 7, counting Jeff's binders to update. And we're just going to put in like the new evaluation form, the new timetable, that kind of thing, make sure everything is current. So I'm going to ask if Lori would work with the Boylston folks to get their binders, and I'll work with Angela and Cliff to get their binders, and then we'll update them and have them ready to redistribute. And that's, I think, everything that we need to. Anything else, Lori? Okay, I think that's it.
Okay. All right. And last item under reports is on the topic of the upcoming conference are the resolutions which will be discussed or voted on at the annual conference. So first, I guess, let me take a poll. Do we have anybody attending the annual conference this year?
I don't think there is an annual conference this year. I think there's a business meeting. Is anybody else following that?
I thought they were doing I thought they were doing the voting on this virtually, though. Were they not? Is it going to be?
I believe that's right, but I don't think they're holding the conference.
No. Nope. I didn't mean in person.
Yeah, there's a business meeting, I think, where they're
Correct.
discussing and voting on these. Yeah, I would love not to do that this year. I took my turn last year.
Yeah, I, as always, unfortunately, will not be able to, as I will be in an area of the country that will have zero technology available to me, as I am that same week every year. Do we have any other members who would be interested in volunteering to represent the district for that discussion?
I'm going to pass on that opportunity, having done it a couple of times.
Well, hearing none. Okay.
Is this when is the meeting? Does anyone know?
Let's see on here.
Sorry.
I was just trying to look that up as we were.
November 7th. It's the 75th annual meeting. November 7th, 2020.
On Saturday?
Go to the website. Anybody on the website?
Yeah, they don't have it on their calendar, which is where I first went. They have their event calendar, and they do not have it on their event calendar this year. They don't have anything listed.
Here it is. Sorry. Annual meeting agenda, Saturday, November 7th, 1 p.m. annual meeting. You know, they have all their business stuff. And then doesn't have an end time, but it's a 1 p.m. start on Saturday, November 7th.
Okay.
They must be trying to keep the attendance low.
Really? November 7th.
I wouldn't have been able to make that even if I wasn't traveling.
I think it's usually on Saturday, isn't it? Oh, no, it's not. It's usually
Thursday and Friday, usually.
Yeah, it's one of those days usually. It's usually a couple hours, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, people get all tangled up in this stuff, you know, and plus they have a lot of reports here. Annual report of the president, the executive director, the auditor, the budget.
Yeah, it's probably going to go on a whole lot longer than it normally did.
I guess, but my question is, I mean, I don't mind sitting in on the meeting, but are they really, you know, normally we vote these resolutions, and I'm confused about if we're even voting these resolutions this year. I don't see this. There's a recommendation.
Our school committee, you mean?
Pardon?
You mean if we, the school committee, are voting on these?
Well, no, I mean at the annual meeting, normally, you know, you have the delegate assembly and your delegate will vote on behalf of your committee on the resolutions.
Is the
And I
annual
don't see how they're going to do that this year.
different than the business meeting?
Pardon?
Is the annual meeting different than the business meeting?
Well, there is a,
I actually think, my if memory serves, I think they're two different meetings.
huh.
But maybe not this year because of the circumstances.
Well, I mean, they list the agenda here basically. And I'm just scanning it. Annual reports of the officers and committees not requiring action by the delegate assembly. And then committee reports requiring action by the delegate assembly. With recommendations for life membership, nominating committee report, resolutions committee report.
Oh, that's part of the resolutions committee report then, yeah.
Okay. So it's at the end of the end of it. They make you sit through all that stuff.
All right.
To that.
All right. Well, I don't mind doing it. I'll be here.
Well, we'll send you chocolates or something to make your time. Thank you, Angela.
Okay, then with that being said, we will need to then review the resolutions. We can go one by one and determine the consensus vote of the committee in general, and or if there is a particular resolution that I think in the past, if I recall, we assumed a vote of yay on all of them and only discuss ones that we particularly would potentially want to vote nay on, if I recall. Is that correct? Cliff, I'll lean on you for maybe some memory on that one.
Probably a good idea.
Well, I think, I don't know, Angela, correct me, but I thought, well, they didn't used to have this many resolutions for one thing.
Yeah, there are a lot of them. Yeah.
They usually were like 3 or 4, and I believe, Angela, we voted on each resolution as a committee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
but I'm not opposed to a more streamlined approach.
Yeah, I guess my first question is, did everybody get to read them?
yeah.
I did.
I usually skip to just the therefore be it resolved. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the core of it, but so I guess we could ask whether were you in support of the majority of them?
There's 2 I don't support, but I will vote yay if everyone else supports them. Mine was, I don't agree with resolution 4, lowering the voting age, and I don't agree with resolution 10, monitoring attendance during the pandemic. I just don't feel they're necessary.
Yeah, four I would, that definitely was the one that stood out to me that I would not be in favor for, would be 4, lowering of the voting age. And I as well would be on board with supporting a nay vote on 10 for not monitoring the attendance.
I was interested in hearing from the leadership team, since number 4 related to civics education. And I don't know if you guys probably already know what these are. When we say number 4, I don't know. There's a resolution for lowering the voting age for municipal elections only. And there's a bunch of reasons why, and one of which is to promote civics engagement mandated in the Massachusetts public schools now. And that 16-year-olds can now pre-register to vote in Massachusetts, and they have other kinds of responsibilities at 16. And so it says, therefore be it resolved that the sponsors call upon the Massachusetts legislature to pass the Empower Act and take other means necessary to allow cities and towns to establish a minimum voting age of 16 for all municipal elections. So I'm wondering what do you think from a teaching and learning perspective, giving 16-year-olds authority to vote in the town elections? Which I assume also means, I was thinking about, well, in Berlin, of course, this is Berlin, which may be very different from thinking about this in Worcester or Springfield, for example, a large city, Boston, because their municipal elections might look quite different. They certainly look quite different. So I'm curious what you think about that.
Only if they get their homework done first.
I think taking a look at, what are we really looking to achieve? If we're looking to, ensure that students are educated in the process, I think that can be achieved without it having implications at the individual town or city level, when not all students may be able to understand the implications of their vote.
Susan, do you know what the origins of this was by any chance?
Well, it just says submitted by the MASC Board of Directors, so I don't know any more than that, no. I mean, it may have come out of that civics led, well, there was this Empower Act that's already, I guess, in motion. So you'd have to go look probably at the Empower Act to see who the sponsors of that are. I was trying to think about what would be bad about it. If those of you who are against it, what do you think would be the negative implications here?
I'm not sure my opinions and feelings on this particular topic are appropriate for, say, a school committee discussion. I'll just be honest. I personally think it's a stretch to try to tie an academic piece to it. I think there's ulterior motives. I'm a guy who doesn't believe 18-year-olds should be able to vote. So I'm not ready to let. I'm not theoretically thinking, 16-year-olds should be voting. So.
Susan, that's why I asked them what the origins of it was, because it sounds like something political, but I haven't researched it, so I don't know, but it sounds that way.
Well,
I can imagine where something like that would have come from.
So the resolution says that the Empower Act allows municipalities to make the decision whether or not they want to lower the voting age for municipal elections. So the Empower Act, so this resolution doesn't say we believe that all 16-year-olds should have the right to vote in the municipal elections. What this says is we believe that the Empower Act, which allows municipalities to consider whether or not to include 16-year-olds.
Yeah, you're right. The resolution language is basically that too, Cliff, to allow cities and towns to establish a minimum voting age of 16. It allows it.
Yeah. So if Berlin decided it wanted to lower the voting age, I don't know how that process would work. Yeah. They could under the Empower Act. Mm-hmm. But it's not just making a statewide mandate that that all 16-year-olds will have the right to vote in municipal elections.
Yeah, that's good clarification. Yeah.
I don't know if it makes a difference to anyone or not, but but that's really what it's about.
And if it passes, what happens?
then towns and cities would have the ability to have 16-year-olds vote in municipal elections if they chose to.
Yeah, so this is a resolution to support the Empower Act, which is sitting in the legislature. It's a vote of support for it.
And take other means necessary to allow cities and towns to establish a minimum. So there may be some other routes.
My guess is that, or my assumption is that they want the kids to be invested in civics and to follow, you know, what's going on in the town, so that therefore they can make an informed vote. However, knowing children of this age, I feel a little bit nervous about that, just because I don't feel like they follow the local stuff like the parents do. And you think about our tight town elections, and a lot of times it's, well, how are you going to vote? How are you going to vote? So I feel like it's a slippery slope. That's more of a personal opinion. And it's kind of based on looking at my own children and where their interests are. It's not necessarily in our town, it's more the world.
Well, a couple of thoughts on that. One is, if they're not interested, they probably won't vote. That'd be the first thing. Second, if they had the right authority to vote, if the towns had, you know, decided that, it gives new meaning and new impetus to very vibrant classroom learning to prepare for that. I mean, it gives real reason, a real rationale for the civics education piece of the curriculum. And it could be that students became very persuasive advocates for certain positions and certain initiatives in the town through having the ability to vote. Actually, it may be that they influence the other adults in the community to think about things differently. So it's possible it could have very positive.
See, fundamentally, to me, though, that sounds backwards. I would be more apt to listen to the logic and story behind it if the curriculum was already in place, if they were already if the curriculum was already there and there was assumption and the proof that there is an investment, and educationally wise, the school system has helped foster this interest, versus putting the resolution, which may help a vote politically first, which provides essentially a vote in a municipality without the curriculum already in place, right? So,
well, I mean, the curriculum, the requirement for civics education is already in place. So we have that requirement in the schools already.
I don't think it's as much the curriculum as who's teaching that curriculum, Susan. And I think there was I've been seeing it, actually it'd be a good topic for my letter this week, but I've seen stuff on the superintendent's listserv about this, and I don't see it here as much, but in some of these bigger districts, especially this year, in some of these schools, it's been a very, very tense situation. Very tense situation. And it's just an overflow from this political year that we're having. So I don't think it's the curriculum necessarily, but I think the concern more certainly from my point of view, is who's teaching the curriculum. And I mean, I always talk about, I don't want teachers to put their political slant on anything that goes on in these schools. And I don't think it's our business to do that. I think that's why they have parents. But that's not the case everywhere. I mean, we have a small school, so we can make sure that we educate our kids in a sort of, in a neutral way, that we don't present topics and we don't present them in any, with any slant. But I think the civics education, there's a lot of room for that. And if you get somebody in there who's teaching those topics, it can create an issue, and it has apparently. I don't see it in this district, but I've seen it on the listserv. So much so that the MASS has released a statement about it today. So there's probably something else going on out there that that I don't see, and I think we haven't seen in our schools. So I'll pay a little more attention to it. But and again, this is why I asked where this came from, and I wonder if it was in response to what I've been seeing on the superintendent listserv.
So in an effort to keep us on track, because it sounds like we might have one more of these resolutions that might warrant some discussion. And it sounds like we've got some differing of opinions, particularly on this one. I'd like to recommend from a chair perspective that I do a quick roll call vote to determine what the committee's position will be on this resolution. And I just want to make sure that everybody's comfortable with that. Let's go with that. Okay, so I'm going to take a quick roll call vote. What we'll do is if you're in favor of the resolution, it'll be a yay vote. If you're against the resolution, it will be a nay vote. And assuming we don't have a tie, we'll move on to talking about resolution 10. So I don't believe I need a motion to do this because I think it's just a movement I made, but Cliff, do you want to correct me? Do I need a motion to do this? I'm assuming not.
Formal school committee vote. Yeah, you might need a formal. I don't know. You're the chair. You make the decision. I know help.
We're gonna put to formal vote. I don't look at it as a formal vote. We're putting to formal vote to accept the resolutions and to give the delegate the responsibility to respond with those resolutions as we've decided. So I'll take that. That'll be a formal vote, and we'll do a motion for that. But just for this particular, I'm just using this as a tool to get us kind of moving along here. Everybody's okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Angela?
No.
Susan?
I will go with the consensus of the group. So come back to me. Go right through the list.
Cliff?
I'm in support of it. Yes.
Okay. Lori?
No.
Okay. Keith?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. It is a no for me.
Oh dear. Then
Susan, this would come to you.
I shouldn't have done that, should I? Well, I mean, I have in my notebook, yes. That's what I wrote next to it. I understand the arguments that are being put out.
So maybe since that's a tie, I'll abstain from voting for that one. During the.
There you go.
That's a very political solution. I like that one.
Yeah, I'll say yes. And so.
Okay. So we're in agreement in agreement as a committee to abstain from that resolution.
Okay.
Well done, folks. Well done. Okay. Resolution number 10 I was hearing was the other one that had a particular interest against it. I particularly wasn't initially concerned with it, but I could be if the group consensusly.
Either. And again, I'd be interested in hearing Jeff's or leadership team opinion on this.
Yeah, the resolution is just about monitoring attendance of students during the pandemic. It's just saying that advocate for legislation and regulation that protect the rights of parents to withhold their children from school for reasons of their health status or health risk, and further blah, blah, blah. I just felt like this already exists. I feel like families, at least in our district, can already ask for a waiver on the attendance policy. I don't know. I just get uncomfortable with these big blanket statements of saying it's okay to keep your kids from school, and because I want people who keep their kids from school to really need to keep their kids from school and not feel like I think I'll keep my kid from school. That's all. It's not a big one or anything, but that was just kind of how I was feeling about it.
I don't know how the state is planning to address sort of the distorted absentee data that they're going to be getting anyway this year. So Jeff, are the attendance data, is that all figured into the state accountability ratings, the school ratings?
As far as I know, they are. Paul, do you have anything more on that? I know they just sent something out.
So I mean, again, last year they decided to waive that piece. And again, so I don't know where they're going to go this year. Certainly we have been asked to disaggregate remote versus in-person attendance. And so they're certainly collecting that. Again, I've been told they're going to be using that data for multiple things, but as far as whether it will go towards our competency rating, I don't know. Again, last year they pulled it, but I don't know where they're going to go this year.
So that may be one reason why this is here, is that we don't want schools, their school ratings to be
Adversely affected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought there was going to be a hold harmless this year, but then again, the commissioner has really advocated for the attendance piece, trying to normalize school.
Right.
Because it wasn't done last spring. And
so isn't the intent of this resolution to get the legislature, excuse me, to promulgate legislation which gives parents the rights to withhold kids from school? Did I read that wrong?
Protect the rights of parents to withhold their children from school.
And they're asking the legislature to promulgate legislation that protects the parents' rights to do that. So why are we advocating for parents to withhold their kids from school?
For health status. It's for health status or health risk. It's COVID related.
Yeah, that's a slippery slope. That's opening a door.
Well, there's two other bullets with this, or three bullets with this. The MASC advocate for regulations that hold districts accountable for the attendance of students, provide appropriate exemptions for students who experience or require extended absences for COVID issues, that MASC petition the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education to waive all accountability requirements regarding attendance. That's the part we were just talking about. And that such regulations exempt districts from sanction status on the basis of attendance. So at least a couple parts of this have to do with that accountability piece. For
I don't know. It sounds like they're trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist.
I think they're anticipating. Yeah, I mean, my feeling is that the state may leave all this in place as incentive to keep attendance up on people's radar, and then withdraw the accountability issues closer to when that needs to be done. But
I don't see any reason to support that resolution. I'm just saying now.
Yeah.
You haven't asked Jim, but I'm telling you, I can't support that resolution.
Okay. Does anybody need more information? You feel ready to vote?
I feel like that already exists though, doesn't it?
Well, no, the accountability issues they're going to fold attendance data into these accountability issues for state school district ratings.
Kids that already have, issues. Am I wrong? I'm just asking one of the principals, or Jeff.
That parents already have the right, you mean?
They already have a way to.
Sorry.
we already have a way to excuse students who are out for medical reason, and we always have. I don't think just saying, just relaxing the attendance regulation is going to make this situation better. In fact, I think it's going to make it worse. So, I mean, we have, and we've always had methods for students who are sick and who are struggling. So, I don't think this. I wouldn't support this if I were you.
I think one of the, as a reminder on some of these resolutions, and I'm remembering this from last year, sometimes you vote no on a resolution because it's not written well. And in this case, I think that's the case because they've folded too many things into one resolution. They've got parents' rights and advocacy there, and they've got accountability issues folded into the same resolution. And I don't think they should have done that. So for that reason, I would vote no.
I would agree with you. It's a very poorly written resolution. It's like it feels like a laundry basket.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so I don't think we need to do a roll call vote because I've already heard 3. I would be a 4th. That puts us in a position. So if the other 2 members want to share their vote, please do. I don't want to exclude you from not being able to share your opinion on it, but in an effort to keep us moving along, Keith or Lori, did you 2 want to share how you would sway on that?
I would vote no on it too.
Okay.
I would as well.
Well, look at that. All right. So any other of these resolutions that we want to address before what I'm going to do is, seeing that we're talking about it, I'm going to ask for a motion to move this to vote now, seeing that we'll be moving to our business item section. Any other resolutions?
Yeah,
Anyone?
wait. Yep, hang on. I have some other, but I'm just looking at them again.
I'm good on all the others.
Okay. Right.
Susan?
I'm good.
Okay. Could I please have a motion to approve the Berlin-Boylston Regional District delegate to vote as desired, voting yay on all resolutions, excluding resolution 10 of a nay vote and resolution 4 of an abstention?
So moved. Was that a quick request for a motion?
Yep.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Thank you very much. Roll call. Angela?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Cliff?
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
Keith?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Thank you very much. That moves us to our business items. I'm really nervous about this first one. Let's see how this goes. Could I please have a vote to accept the job description for central office position as presented earlier by Jeff?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you very much. Angela?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Cliff?
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
Keith?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Phew, that was a tight one. Whew. Could I please have a motion? It was already on there, the MSC resolution. Sorry, I don't know why. I don't know how I missed that. We already did that one. Thank you very much. I don't know why I somehow missed
Forced
that.
us into an early vote.
I did, yeah. Well, it was in my mind how I wanted to present the motion, so I went with it. Could I please have a motion to approve policy EBC-S emergency plans proposed under the new umbrella policy?
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, Angela?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Cliff?
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
Keith?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Item number 4, could I please have a motion to approve policy IHBHE with COVID-related supplement?
So moved.
Seconded.
Thank you both very much. Angela?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Cliff?
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
Keith?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Could I please have a motion to accept the donation from Tohonta Class 2009 to Tohonta Regional Middle High School? in
Wait,
the amount-
we skipped number 5, didn't we?
Did we? Oh, I did. Oh my gosh, I'm going too fast now. Sorry, number 5. Could I please have a motion to approve policy JE, attendance regional as proposed?
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, sorry, it's that one. Thank you both very much. Angela,
Aye.
Susan,
Aye.
Cliff,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
Keith,
Aye.
and I as well. Item number 6 is a motion to accept a donation from Tohonta Class 2009 to Tohonta Regional Middle High School in the amount of $2,585.79.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
that's fantastic. Yeah.
Very much.
I want to hear what your plans are there, Diane.
Okay. Angela,
Aye.
Susan,
Aye.
Cliff,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
Keith.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Item number 7 is to accept a donation from Nipro Foundation of Clinton on the amount of $1,950 to fund a 1-year subscription for IXL 75 licenses for grade 6 students at Tohonta.
Motion made.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you very much. Any discussion?
Yeah, I sent my question to Jeff about this. And you can answer it at another point or now. Do you remember that question? I had asked about what the review process was when curriculum materials are donated to the school before use.
So that's I'm going to turn that over to the assistant superintendent.
Typically, this is a lengthier process to vet curriculum materials for the district. In this case, I think what had happened, this is an online tool that we're familiar with, we've used in the past in the district. It's a skills practice, and it's diagnostic testing. The 6th grade we didn't have this budgeted this year and really didn't plan to use it, but with COVID coming up, the superintendent wanted to get some quick assessments done to look at regression for students. So this came up in September. It was just a resourceful attempt from a teacher to get this kind of diagnostic piece in place so that they could do some remediation during what they call block 8, which is intervention time period during the year. If I had talked to Beth Barry from the 6th grade, and if they were going to go forward with this in a long-term process, we would do a pilot for this, and we would gather information. There's a whole process, and I can do that at another time. It's lengthier than this quick conversation, but for now, just use it in the moment, when we know it is comfortable. But it's not. This isn't typical of what we would normally do.
That's helpful.
Usually donations are made for curriculum materials anyway, so this is unusual.
Right. That's why it sort of jumped out at me. So thank you for that context.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. So vote on that. We had our motion and our second. Roll call. Angela.
Aye.
Susan.
Aye.
Cliff.
Aye.
Lori.
Aye.
Keith.
Aye.
I am an aye as well. Okay. Vote number 8 is the approval of a student teacher, Ann Constantino, to teach grade 2 at BES under the supervision of Beverly Fletcher. Do I
So
have a
moved.
motion? Okay, Angela.
Second.
Susan, thank you both. Angela,
Aye.
Susan,
Aye.
Cliff,
Aye.
Lori,
Aye.
Keith.
Aye.
That's an aye for me as well. And item number 9 is the approval of Marilyn San Inocencio, I don't know. I hope I did not. I apologize if she listens to this in the future of the butchering of the name, but is the approval of Marilyn to student teach in the school counseling office at Tohonta under the supervision of Mr. Picarillo.
So moved.
Whoops. Second.
All right, Angela and Susan, thank you both. Angela?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Cliff?
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
Keith?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. And item number 10 is, could I please have a motion to approve the OPEB trust contributions of $18,070 to fund retiree healthcare as proposed by Bob earlier tonight.
Motion made.
Cliff, thank you.
Seconded.
Angela, thank you. Angela?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Cliff?
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
Keith?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Okay, that concludes our business items. A couple of updates. For me, I'm going to be working with Christy it'll probably be next week, but we will begin to post for the upcoming open seat in Berlin. And what I'm doing is I'm floating my timeline in front of you folks, and if there's any questions, concerns, or changes anybody wants to make, I just wanted to quickly discuss it. My thought is we will post the open seat, same requirements, letter of interest with resume, with the due date being the end of November. And then we will have on our agenda on our December meeting, it would be the interview process for that open seat. I felt it was, we will be saying goodbye to a wonderful friend, and let's let him participate in who we get to look at now in that seat. And so I figure he can be part of that interview process, and then we'll have on our agenda in January the appointment of that individual to take the seat for that January meeting. Is everybody comfortable with that timeline?
That makes sense to me. And thank you, Cliff, for a very nice letter that you composed. And we're sad to see you go.
Thank you, Susan.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been able to have done these last 3.5 years without Cliff. Kind of held my hand along the way.
Well, you're a fast learner.
Mine.
Anything else as it relates to that? Anybody else? Any other thoughts, ideas? We're good with that? Okay, I will start working with, Christy, probably maybe even this week. And then my thought was we'll post it obviously publicly. We have to post it. We'll post it on the district website. And then my thought was to encourage interest on the Facebook sites like I did previously. Is everybody comfortable with me doing that? Just posting the openness of it and the availability of it?
Yeah, and the timeline.
Yeah, and the time, all that. Essentially what I'll do is I'll work with Christy for the formal posting, and I'll just, on behalf of the school committee, share the formal posting. That's what I'll do.
Will you send it to other places too, like the PTO, CPAC link?
Yeah. I mean, that makes total sense to do that. Yeah, that makes total sense. I might lean on, I'm not sure I'm 100% up to date on, I'm not sure I'm 100% up to date on who all the leadership members are of those groups. I might lean on our wonderful principals to share with me some of that information. Maybe I'll just send out one thread with everybody, and maybe they can share with me who the current leaders are for that. We'll share it with those groups. And then on another note too, I want to start, we need to get back on track, I think, having our every other session where we invite some of those groups as well.
Yeah.
To share some of those things as well. We haven't done that in a while, so I want to make sure we address that topic as well. So we'll start to think about how we're going to bring that back in. Only other update for me is Susan is up and ready to go. She will be leading our meeting, our November meeting. I will not be here. I will be in the woods somewhere where nobody can contact me. And I'm sure we will be in excellent hands. But Susan and I will be meeting with Jeff to go over the agenda as typical. I would meet. Susan will be part of that discussion and preparing the agenda for November. And that was all I had. Any other updates, communications? All right. Could I please have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Thank you both. Angela?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Cliff?
Aye.
Lori?
Aye.
Keith?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Good night, everybody.